Hi, I'm Courtney Webster, and this is Your Recovered Life. And today I am so excited to be having a conversation with the amazing Rowan. Um, I'm going to read a little bit of her official bio. It has too many accolades and accomplishments to fit in, so I tried editing it down and it still didn't do it justice. So I'm going to just read a bit of it, and she's going to share more about how amazing she is, even though she's very humble. So Ro has always been passionate about music. She studied classical cello and spent most of her youth in orchestras. It was only after experiencing a personal loss that she walked away from music. And it wasn't until she was enrolled at UCLA to pursue a degree in women's studies that she experienced a moment of clarity that returned her passion. In 2010, Ro was accepted into the Berklee College of Music and has won more scholarships and awards than I can read. It's impressive. Her cello and vocals can be heard on over 100 tracks on albums for notable artists and major motion picture soundtracks. She has toured and played at such iconic venues as the Viper Room, BB King's, the El Rey, and the Whiskey. She continues to write and record her own material and plans to release an EP this year. 2 of her singles can currently be found on iTunes. She's not messing around. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for saying you would have this conversation and share your story.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Cool. So the first question I like to ask is, have you found your calling?
I would say yes.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
I
Well, now
think
that
so.
we've got that out of the way, what happened? You have a really, I love, when I heard your story, I loved how this music really kind of was like this through line that so maybe most people start their story by saying, so I got into recovery and here's what happened. And yours has a little bit of a different arc. So if you wanted to share it?
Sure. Um, Growing up, I didn't really know music was my passion because I liked so many things as a kid. I liked to draw. I liked sports were really big in my life. Probably my first thing that I did was play tennis at 3, and then I just, that was really I thought was my passion. And then I started playing cello at about 7 years old. But I was into science and movies, and so I liked a lot of things, and music was one of the things that I did. And honestly, my mom had to force me to practice. It wasn't something that I could take the initiative to do. Um, excuse me. But growing up, like you had said, I experienced a personal loss when I was 16. My grandma died, and about 2 years before that, I had found alcohol, which was a great escape, and I didn't have to deal with my feelings, and it made me all the things that I uh, wanted to be that I was just terrified to be or were insurmountable without having some type of aid. And so when she died, that was the first thing I went to. And because she was so a part of my music, she lived with my mom and I for almost 6 years. So she really was a second parent. So when she died, I couldn't imagine playing the cello without her. She used to sit behind me when I practiced and would clap even after I did a scale and would take me to all my recitals. And so I stopped playing music, and alcohol kind of became this way of avoiding my feelings and really avoiding myself. It just became too vulnerable and just too much to be me. And so I stopped playing cello, and little by little, I stopped doing all the things that really made me me and brought me a lot of joy because I was so invested in not feeling these feelings that I didn't know how to deal with. So I did that for a good 6 years. And I would say in that time, it was very painful to listen to cello, but I also really wanted to listen to cello. So it was this weird, like I wanted to do it, but it was too much. And so I ended up at UCLA as a women's studies major. And just by chance, in one of my classes was a woman that I played cello with growing up, and I asked her what she was doing, and she was doing amazing things. She was principal cellist of the symphony at the school. She was playing in a hip hop orchestra, and that was kind of my moment where I was able to step back and go, "What am I doing? My life is just passing me by, and here's this person as a reflection of where I could have been had I not given it it up. So I changed my major to musicology, and I think within a few weeks I heard about a second orchestra at the school, and I auditioned, and I made last chair. Thank goodness.
Squeezed in there.
Squeezed in there. And I totally think that was the universe just nudging me in there. There's no reason why I should have been. I hadn't played in so long. And that kind of began the journey back into music. And it was the summertime, and 2 weeks into school, I was missing classes and I was not able to focus. And there was and I would go to I went to 2 weeks of rehearsals completely loaded. And a little voice inside of me said, if you really want this, you're going to have to get sober. And so I started that road, and music became this sort of beacon of opportunity and hope, and a way to be now close to my grandma, where I was trying so hard not to be close because it was too much. So yeah, music became more than just music. It kind of became what kept me alive in a way, and had a whole nother meaning to it. And I was always the kid in orchestra that didn't really feel like I belonged there. I really wanted to play in rock groups and kind of different genres, and and so I started doing that. I played in a country band. I played in some rock bands, and really was like, okay, now I want to be a successful musician. And in doing so for several years, I stayed sober, but I was chasing fame. It was like I wanted to fill the hole, and I thought music would do it. But in the process, I left music behind because I wanted people to tell me how much I was worth, and that I was worth something, and to give me that love. And in the process, I just left music behind. And it was kind of, again, another moment where I went, what am I doing? Where am I in this? Where's my music? I was playing for other people and not doing my own thing. And so when I graduated UCLA, I went into the fitness industry because saying I was a musician was too vulnerable, and it took too much responsibility, because I just, well, I'm not really any good. I just play, but I'm not really a musician. That took too much commitment. And but I hit a point again about 5 years in the fitness industry where I asked myself, would I be happy doing this in 5 years, playing music at night and on the weekends as a secondary thing? And I love fitness, but it didn't do for me what I needed. It wasn't, I had an artistic calling that I wasn't nurturing. And so that's when I decided I'm going to give Berklee a try, and it worked out, fortunately. And so now I'm in my last semester at Berklee.
I love how you tell the story. It's like, well, this and then this, and now I'm at Berklee. And if anyone goes to your website, they'll be like, their mind will be blown, because I'm not blowing smoke. Like, it's impressive, the things that you're doing there, and the way that you're showing up, and the way it's so clearly, my experience is when I see people living their passion and honoring it, just amazing things happen, and you just see it, So that's why I'm so happy to have these conversations, because I feel like we can look and go, how'd they do it? It looks like it just happened. And I know that it didn't just happen. Because you've told me and so let's tease it out a little bit, okay?
Okay.
So you finish UCLA, and you're like, well, you'd start doing editing or something, right?
I did like some video editing for a company, and I was kind of interning, and I wasn't making any money. So someone had said, well, what would you do all day, every day, if you could do exactly what you wanted? And I said, well, I'd hang out with friends and family, I would work out, and I'd play music. And they said, well, why don't you become a trainer? And I thought, well, that's great, because then I don't really have to be a musician, because that feels too scary. So I'll do something else I'm good at. And that was something that, as you said, the journey has just been profound. It's really been a journey of honoring taking the risk of saying I'm a musician. That was the hardest thing to do, and to believe that I could do it, because in my head I'm 7-8 years behind everyone. I stopped playing, and so I don't feel like I'm as good, and the mind does weird things when my mind did weird things when I stepped away for so long and was out of that practice. So it really has been a journey of identifying what it is that I like, and then believing that that's even possible,
Mm-hmm.
and taking the risk of failing. That's what I was afraid of. It's like, well, if I fail in something that's not really me, then, well, that's okay because it's not really me.
So it was okay to fail at plan B, which was training, right, in the fitness business.
Hmm.
But that's that sacred thing. Our dreams are sacred,
Hmm.
and it can be really scary to step into them or to actually say, this, I'm planting a flag and this is what's important to me and this is who I am and this is what I stand for and this is what I do. It's fucking terrifying,
It is.
right?
And the flip side is it's where all the juice is. It's the most rewarding thing, and that's what I've been realizing is for how long I've done that game where it's easier to be someone that I think that I should be, or that feels like it would be safer, and really believing that if I did that I would be happy. And it took kind of hitting a wall each time where I evaluated and said, no, this this doesn't, always feeling like something's missing.
Yeah, feeling like, well, I'm glad you're bringing that up because one of the things I like to talk about is what did it feel like? Because I know that a lot of people watching these conversations are it's just great to hear how it happens for people, but there's definitely some people who are in that place where I don't know what my thing is, and it just doesn't feel good. And I like to say, okay, that's okay. Just because it doesn't feel good doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. And you need to be asking the questions. Asking the question, being in the not knowing, is part of the finding out. And we just give credit to the finding out, really, in this society, right? It's like, oh, I've got the answer. But it's like, yeah, but this part of not knowing is part of it, and we need to honor that part.
Yeah.
So, when you decided to do the fitness, were you like, I need to have a calling, or I don't know what it is, or was it a conscious, I'm not going to do the music because that's too scary, or what was that like?
I think it was very conscious, but also very subconscious. I don't think that I had the tools and the self confidence to do that yet. And I think that doing the training was actually a great training ground for me because I was thrown into situations that were very challenging and that I was underqualified for, and I had to really learn how to swim. And so I can remember I was managing a staff of 12 or 13 students and 5 trainers, and running this facility. And I kind of went, how did I get here? I felt like I was going to be found out that I didn't know what I was doing. And it took about a year of trying to do my job until there was just a shift that happened, and I started to just feel my job and feel, you know what, I am a supervisor. And it's almost like I had to do less. As soon as I felt that and felt like I deserved to be there and that I was capable of being there, it was as if all of a sudden my whole staff, all of their energy shifted, and I didn't have to ask them to do things. They just were doing them. And I kind of went, what is going on? And that's when I understood it's the energetic. It's like, what am I bringing to what I'm doing? Am I walking around just telling people what to do, but they can sense that I don't really know what I'm doing? So it was an energetic thing. But it was a great training ground for me to, if I could learn that there, I could apply that then to music. It's like, okay, I can do the same thing. So that time was so not lost or wasted. I believe it completely prepared me to believe that I could do the same thing with music, that I would someday, even though I didn't believe it now, get to a point where I energetically believed that I was a musician.
That's great.
Um, and it was interesting, you talk about like, how do you know what it is? And when I got here to Berklee, there's all these cool majors, and then me liking everything. I'm like, oh, I want to do film scoring. I want to do music production and engineering. And oh, I like music therapy, but I want to do like all these things. And what I really had to do was kind of dip a toe into them and see what it felt like. How did I respond to the workload? Was I excited to do homework, or was I like, well, this sounds like a cool job, but I don't really want to do the homework? And then my major, electronic production and design, is very geared towards creating your own music and producing your own music, whereas our sister technology major is about recording other people's music. So you're learning how to be an engineer for other people. And again, it was that moment where I don't want to hide behind other people. Not to say that that's what that is, but for me, I have spent so long not being authentic and truthful and honoring my own voice, that it felt like the right place to be was to put myself in a major where I'd have to do that. And I tried film scoring and I just wasn't, it just didn't do it. Like, does it interest me? Absolutely. But I kind of took a year to figure it out. And it was I was talking with a friend and she was saying, you know, I can stay up all night doing this and I love doing it, and I'm, you know, it has nothing to do with school, but I just love doing it, and I'm writing and I'm researching, and it reminded me, like, that is so clear about a calling when we just want to do it for hours and hours and hours and it doesn't feel like work.
Right, right. That's the dream. That's the dream. Well, I kind of feel like so I want to put a pin in you're doing your fitness, and then you go to the music. But before that, you've actually brought up something that we might as well talk about now, which is, are there times when, because here's the thing, like, yes, we can stay up and we're so excited about it, we can do it for, you know, we can just keep doing it. But I feel like there's a little bit of a myth along with that. Like, yes, that's true, and there are times when it's just you're exhausted, or I'll be like, I'm exhausted, I don't know what to do next, or just you know, there's like walls within there where you has that, or maybe it's just me.
No, I relate.
So are there, so maybe talk a little bit about that, because I want to highlight, I love how you talk about how you tried this and you tried that, like things were calling to you, what things were calling to you, right? And then you tried a little of this and you got to feel into it. And I think sometimes when people are looking for a calling or just looking for a hobby or something to do, it's like we set ourselves up with this idea that it has to look like this thing, and we might not even know what that thing looks like, but it's not where we are now, so I don't know how I would even get there. And so we stop ourselves in going in any direction at all because we just don't know how it's possibly going to get there. And we don't even know if we want to go there, right? Like, I would love to run a marathon, but I don't really like to run. But I haven't really tried running. Like, I've never gotten any really good running shoes and just tried it. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I just stop. I'm doing other things, everybody. I'm doing other things, but but so I love how you talk about that. And now, are there some times when you feel like, even though you're living your calling and your passion and your dream, that there's some hard moments in there?
So, you know, that obviously there's hard times when things don't feel right, but there's really challenging times when things do feel right. And I would say that my time being sober has really taught me about letting go of the results and just doing what's in front of me and trusting that things are going to, they're going to be okay, you know, and just to stay in motion, to just put one foot in front of the other. And, you know, so when I decided to come to Berklee, I hadn't decided. It was kind of like this thing that I really wanted to do, but it was really far away because I was in Los Angeles and it's in Boston. And my girlfriend at the time could kind of see that I wanted to, but I wasn't looking there. And she kind of just stopped me and looked me right in the eye and said, "Go where you need to go." And that was the moment. For whatever reason, I needed permission. Like, I needed her to reflect permission to me, you know, and now I know how to give myself permission. But in that moment, I didn't know it was possible. And then there was this other moment where, so I auditioned. I was preparing for the audition, and the whole time I was thinking, what do they want? What do they want? What do they want? And am so grateful I stumbled upon a video of the president of the school because I was researching about auditions.
What do they want? What do they
What do they
want?
want? What do they want? And he said very, very clearly in an interview, don't don't prepare for your interview and give us what you think we want. And I was like, what? He's all, we want to see who you are. And that was the moment. I was preparing a classical piece and I just kind of stopped in my tracks and went, okay. And I wrote an original piece and I recorded a bunch of cello parts and then brought it into the audition and played one of the cello parts along with my recording. And it just felt right. I remember I left there feeling like, oh my gosh, this feels really right. Like I think I might get in. And I got in, and then I had to take out loans to go, which was very scary. And I remember sitting there going, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can sign this loan. This is too, I don't know if I can do this. And again, my girlfriend at the time said, if you want to live big, you have to take big risks. And again, I thought, wow, it really showed me how small that I lived. It was like just as far out of reach as I could control. And this was giving away all control to go into tremendous debt to do something that I love. And I will say that I am in tremendous debt, and I couldn't be happier than a time when I was financially secure. I'm much happier now. So money just, and so so I moved.
Before you moved to Boston,
Sure.
you were financially secure, you had this job and you were doing really well and it was all kind of flowing and you were like, wow, I've got this, right? And something else was going on. What made you?
Well, it was, I think that I had positioned myself where I'd always been told if you positioned yourself, you'd be happy. So I had a great job. I had benefits. I was financially secure. I was in a relationship. I had a cat. I had an apartment. You know, I had a car, and something was missing. And so I had to find out, you know, and I've heard the phrase over and over and over again, if it's meant to be, it will happen. But I have to let go and not hold on tightly to something that doesn't feel right. You know, or not that it doesn't feel right, but that something's missing. I have to go for it and trust that if that's meant to be, it will be. And if that wasn't meant to be, I trust that I'm going to find out what that is. But to live in a place that doesn't feel like something's right means I need to do something differently. And I need to take a risk.
So scary.
Terrifying.
It can be really scary. It can be really scary if you don't know what it is. Did you, so when you were in that place, you're like, something's missing. Was there just a moment when you said, I have to do this music thing? Or like, do you remember like a crystallizing moment or a moment of clarity in that regard?
I feel like I felt like there was a volume knob that just slowly was being turned up. And I think it was started when I got sober. It was a little voice that I knew intuitively that was where I needed to be. And it took me 6 years to get up the courage to pursue it. So I think around 4, 5, and 6 is when the volume started to get really loud, and that there just became a point where it was unavoidable anymore. That yes, I had a great life, and I was very grateful for it, but I had a calling to do music. That was something that I feel like is part of my path, is to do music. And you know, the question, is it your calling? I think that what I didn't realize, which I did realize in, you know, being sober and doing so much work on myself and being of service and being an active member of society and all of these things that I work on and have the opportunity to work on, is that it really is about connecting with people and having relationships and feeling a part of, and choosing people in my life that reflect parts of me that are healthy and beautiful. And because when I was using. I was running from people, but really I was running from myself. So it's a way, it's a vehicle to connect. It's a vehicle to connect to myself and then to connect to other people. So it's music is my vehicle, but really my calling is about staying ridiculously connected to people
That's really
and
cool.
feelings and emotions, which I didn't want to have anything to do with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was struck when you were talking about how music brought you back to yourself when you're at UCL, like it brought you back to you.
Hmm.
That's what it struck me when you were saying it. Awesome. So, okay, so now you get into Berklee and you're signing a lot of with a lot of zeros, I imagine. And you
Yes.
arrive in Boston. What happens?
So I arrive in Boston. My mom helps me move in. I put her in a taxi. I say goodbye. I turn around and walk towards my apartment. And then it's like I'm hit with what the fuck have I just done? Fear. I didn't know anybody. I felt like I was carried. I know it's going to be scary, but it's going to be all right. But that was the moment where I just felt the fear of what I had set myself up to do. And I went in my apartment, and I went on my bed, and I cried. And I was like, what have I done? And it was pretty quickly, within 5 minutes, I just kind of sat up and went, I'm in Boston, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. And it was because I'd had so many experiences over the years where I took a leap of faith or did something that was scary and it was okay. And then even just in the 3 months prior to coming, or however many months, auditioning was very scary. Signing the loan papers was very scary. And I was like, okay, I feel like I'm supposed to be here. So really trust and like a belief in the universe or nature or God, whatever that is, that's vital. At least for me, that's so vital because it's when I'm have no idea where I'm going, I have no idea what it's going to look like, I have no idea if I'm going to fail. I have to believe that I'm going to be carried no matter what and trust that I'll be guided in the direction I'm supposed to be, not the direction I think I need to go. So that's why I try so hard to just stay here, like look ahead, but really stay here. That's where my work is, and trust that the universe will present what needs to be brought into my life that I can move towards. And I developed it, like that thing about listening to my intuition. I feel like that's much more developed than it was 10 years ago. So I can kind of go, oh, that feels right. Even though I don't understand and I doesn't make any sense to me, that feels the most right. So I go that direction.
Cool. Oh, there's so many things that you've said where I've just gotten kind of goosebumps. And here's the thing. I feel like, I'm creating this series so people can be inspired and can, kind of hear people's truths. And there will be things that resonate with their truth, which will give them. And I just feel like there's so many things that you've said, like, I'm going to watch this again and listen to you. I'm really, it's powerful. It's powerful to see somebody, walking into the fear and walking through the fear. And I've just heard you talk all about that. And it's powerful and it's profound and it's so hopeful. So hopeful. So thank you for sharing all of this. Is there anything, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you'd want to share?
Yeah, there's two things that I think of, and one is just I feel like I was able to take this big risk and this big leap to following music because I watched other people do it. And I had a friend of mine who had a full-time secure job and left that to go into tremendous debt at one of the most expensive and prestigious art schools in the country. And I needed that. I needed to see that it was expensive and I needed to see that it was art so that I believed it was parallel enough to my story that I started to believe that I could do it and I really wanted to do it. And there was another person in my life that kind of did the same thing, and it was absolutely because of them that I believed it was possible. So I would encourage people to be inspired. Find someone that, is doing something that seems terrifying and watch them and be inspired by them. Surround yourself with people that inspire you. And the other thing I would say is, I think I tried so hard to be an adult and like figure out what I was supposed to do. And really, I feel more like a kid in my bedroom playing around, just like I just feel more like a kid than ever. And I would encourage people to tap into that like inner child within and like ask your inner child, like, what do you want to do today? Like that was huge for me because I was like, shh, 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 we have to do this. And it wasn't until I really was like, well, what do you want to do? And to actually honor that I ended up in a place where I was like, oh, you were right. Shows what I know.
Excellent. That's awesome. Ro, I am so really truly grateful that you shared your story and that you are lighting the way. You are an inspiration and I truly believe that when people are living their passion, it makes the world a better place. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing your story and
For having me.
yeah, I guess I could say thank you a bunch more times, but I'd be repeating myself. So so
No,
I
I
guess
think what you're doing is wonderful. You know, you're
thanks.
creating a platform and you're the messenger, and in being the messenger, you're also in your passion. It's beautiful.
Cool.
Your
Thanks.
vehicle.
All right. Thanks, honey. Bye.
Bye.